I know you're eager to get outside and enjoy this beautiful day. Thank you for hanging with us with these great conversations. I'm Sara Kehaulani Goo. I'm the executive editor of Axios Live. Thrilled to be here for our final segment. And first of all, thank you for being here day one of the DNC with us. Now we're going to have a conversation with a different perspective. You heard from a congresswoman, you heard from a governor. Now I want to bring in someone who's done some impressive work in the nonprofit sector. She's founded an organization you may have heard of called Girls Who Code. She now has founded a new organization called Moms First. Please welcome CEO Reshma Saujani. All right, Reshma, this is great. Where should we start? I think that you heard a lot in the conversation earlier about expanding the child tax credit and all these other ideas about helping moms and helping families. We know in this conversation about pocketbook issues that childcare is a huge part of that pocketbook for families. So tell us about your new campaign, which I understand is a bipartisan campaign.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Listen, parents are drowning. And when you talk to them, whether you're at a rural community or in the city, they'll tell you that the number one cost that is just killing me is the cost of childcare. You know, while inflation might be slowing down, prices are going up. There was a study that came out that for the first time in all 50 states, parents are paying more for their childcare than for their mortgage. And this is really gutting young parents. You know, 15,000 millennials turn 35 every single day. And so that's a tremendous, tremendous pain point. And so what we've been doing at Moms First is trying to really elevate childcare as like the number one, number two, number three issue that Congress should get their act together on instead of number 13. You know, we started with a campaign during the first presidential debate where we wanted to get childcare asked as a question. And we had 15,000 moms and our allies sign a petition. They asked the question. You know, it was one question asked. AI didn't get asked, but childcare did. Unfortunately, our candidate spent 22 seconds talking about childcare and 56 seconds talking about their golf game, right? So we know that something needs to change. So we're launching a campaign called Get Childcare on the Record so that that we not only have candidates like talk about this, but like commit to what they're going to do.
Right. And so tell me more about that, because we all know politicians can talk a big game, especially right now when they're running up to November. But what policies really move the needle? What are we really talking about? And also, is it just the public sector? Is there something the private sector also can do here?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I think we're in an interesting place because we actually are talking about family values. Unfortunately, one candidate is talking about cat ladies and memes instead of actually substantively talking about what they want to do, and that needs to change because we know that if they're not talking about it now, they sure as hell aren't when they're going to get elected. And so the thing is that, you know, I think that like child care is a critical economic issue. You know, for far too often, I think for the moms in this room or the parents in this room, right, you're made to feel like it's your personal problem. If you are failing at your job and you are failing at taking care of your children, you think you failed. The pandemic was a massive eye-opener to the fact that it's not just me. There's 40 million moms that are collectively having the same exact experience, that we are literally being set up to fail, and that it's not a personal problem. It is an economic issue. You cannot work without affordable, available childcare. And the reality is childcare is neither affordable nor available. 50% of parents live in childcare deserts. I live in New York City, and 50% of New Yorkers live in a childcare desert. And as we discussed earlier, it's not only not available, it's not affordable. And so something needs to get done. We did a study with BCG that found that childcare actually pays for itself. There's a 425% return when companies actually invest in childcare, because guess what? Workers don't miss work days. There's not absences. They stick with you. It doesn't cost you, 18 months of someone's salary to replace a worker, because I believe in you now, the fact that you are actually believing in my children. So it makes a huge amount of difference. The other thing is, just one last thing, from a historical perspective, like we've done this before. You know, when we talk about universal childcare, we think we're talking about unicorns and rainbows, right? But we're talking not just about but we're talking about what we did in World War II. You know, when the men went off to war in World War II, they're like, damn, we got to get women in the workforce and we got to make it happen fast. And so we started building childcare centers through the Lanham Act. And literally for 3 months, every single American had childcare, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and they spent less than $1 an hour. When the men came back to war, we shut down those childcare centers, and we are where we are today. So we need to return to what we once knew was actually working for women and families.
And it's interesting you brought up historical the moment in time, right? Because now I feel like we are in a very different world for some workers. There's a lot more of the workforce that's working from home. Since COVID, women have returned to the workforce at the numbers that they were at before COVID. And so I think that naturally starts like a question there about what women today, in particular moms today, need that may be different in today's workplace. What are your ideas, or what are you hearing from moms in particular about
Well,
that?
first of all, workplaces have never worked for women. And, we have to always ask ourselves, 75% of high school valedictorians are girls. The vast majority of those getting their bachelor's degrees are women, right? But then when you look at the workforce, right, you don't see that same type of leadership in Main Street, Wall Street, or anywhere, because when we become mothers, we are literally pushed out. Because workplaces have never been built for us. Think about it this way. Why is the school day 8:30 to 3 and the workday 9 to 5? Set up to fail before I even had my cup of coffee, right? So we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity we did during the pandemic to actually redesign workplaces. And so we started offering flexibility. We started offering remote work, and it worked. We were productive. The stock market was soaring. But guess what? Immediately after that, we had this enormous amount of pressure to return back to what wasn't working in the first place. Sometimes if my father is sick or my child is sick, I just need a little bit of grace. And that doesn't mean that I'm not productive. And so we know that companies that have continued to focus on remote work have retained workers. And yes, we have the highest amount of participation. I think it's like, at 79 million workers, the highest it's ever been of women working in the workforce. And that works for often white-collar workers. But there's still been penalty and pushback on that. Google has come back. Dell announced a policy that if you were going to actually take advantage of remote work, you were no longer on partnership track. And we're not even speaking about the vast majority of workers who are wage workers who don't have access, to remote work and don't have even access to flexibility. We should be building workplaces that actually work for them. I talk a lot about women, but we oftentimes don't talk enough about the children. What led me to this work is that so many of my students at Girls Who Code, instead of going to college, instead of majoring in computer science, they had to stay home and take care of their siblings, because daycare centers were shut down and their mothers were essential workers. That same phenomenon is happening now. We have the largest amount of child absences since 2019 because daycare centers are not open, childcare is not affordable. Kids are having to stay home instead of going to school to take care of their siblings. And in many states, for example, instead of fixing work, we've made the school day go down from 4 days instead of 5. That is America? That's how we're going to continue to ensure our own competitiveness, our own exceptionalism, our own excellence, instead of fixing childcare, instead of making sure that kids have the opportunity to learn. We're going to do what we've always done, is treat women like our social safety net. And so we're going to make damn sure that doesn't happen in this next election.
Let's talk a little bit more about beyond the public sector. Your organization has pushed for paid family leave, paid leave, and also there's a responsibility. You mentioned Google, other companies have changed some of their policies. What responsibility or what actually is helpful to moms from the company perspective? And keep in mind, of course, I know small businesses have different challenges than bigger corporations. So what do you see needs to happen there?
Well, first, I think whatever we design, we have to design it for small businesses and for whatever works for them. And the reality is that's why we need a federal investment. That's why we need to finally pass paid leave. The U.S. is the only industrialized nation that doesn't have paid leave. 1 out of 4 women go back to work 2 weeks after having a baby. We need universal, affordable childcare, and we need to provide tax incentives essentially to companies when they do provide these benefits, so it doesn't bankrupt them. And we need to continue to get business to be a partner. We launched at Moms First the National Business Coalition on Childcare, the first ever. We have over 150 businesses that are advocating and supporting these policies, so that if we get an opportunity for federal investment again, they're going to be side by side, shoulder to shoulder with moms, advocating for these policies. But I think we're at a place where businesses also understand that we need to do something about paid leave in childcare. I was talking to a small business owner who actually owned a hotel. And he said to me, Reshma, the two most important days for me are Christmas and January 1st. And here's the thing, I would love to hire women, but because I can't provide paid leave, because I can't provide childcare, it's often hard. But here's the thing, on those two most important days of my life, because I hire all these men, they don't show up because they're hungover, right? And so it affects my business. Not providing these policies, not having government policies affects my ability to hire the most qualified worker. And so I think businesses understand this more than ever before. I also think we as moms, we as parents, are no longer pretending that we have to go to a networking lunch instead of take our child to the doctor. The pandemic opened ourselves up to what we actually want and what we can expect from our employers. And you're hearing more employees in their surveys basically say, these are the benefits I want. I want you to help me with my childcare. I don't want that gym membership. I want to be able to, I also want to be able to take time and investment with my family. So I think the conversation is changing. And I think that parents have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to push on their elected officials to ensure that childcare and paid leave are the most important issues in this election.
I think we're getting the hook here, but this has been a great conversation. So thank you so much for what you do and for sharing with us, Reshma Saujani.
Thank you. Thank you so much.